Welcome back to the Word Walk. I'm Ty. This is episode 2. Today we're going to actually continue from episode 1 where it was an overview of the book of Genesis, but I feel like I needed to go deeper. So this is episode 2. Let's get started. Let's begin with the story of Cain and Abel, which is in Genesis chapter 4. Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 to 16, what they do is they recount the tragic story of Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel were the first two sons of Adam and Eve. The first two. Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain was a worker of the ground. In time, both of them brought offerings to the Lord. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock and the fat portions, the yummy, tasty portions, the best animals he had, while Cain brought some fruits of the ground. Let's read the verses. Again, Genesis 4, these will be verses 4 and 5. As of right now, I'm always using the ESV version of the Bible. Let's go. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. Let's do a little bit of contrasting here. Cain brought some fruits of the ground. The wording there suggests a lack of care and importance in his offering. Cain's offering was not rejected because it was from the ground, of course, but because it lacked the best and a heart of faith behind it. This teaches us about the importance of giving our best to the Lord. Not just in material offering, but in our devotion and obedience. We exist because of God. Everything exists because of God. I'm talking right now to you because of God. Why would you not give him the best of everything you possibly can do? How about that, right? I'm going to continue reading the verses. I'm at Genesis chapter 4 again. This is verses 6 and 7. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must overrule it." When studying the Bible, it's always a good thing to have multiple translations. Like I said earlier, right now I'm reading the ESV version, also known as the English Standard Version. But sometimes I like to pull up things such as the Amplified version. If you've never heard of it, its initials will be AMP. You can find it on Bible Gateway. And what it does, it adds a little bit of flavoring to the verses by adding more context in the form of brackets. So I'm going to just jump to the Amplified version of these two verses real quick. 6 and 7 again, Amplified version. And God said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? And why do you look so annoyed? If you do well," in brackets now, "believing in me and doing what is acceptable and pleasing to me," end of brackets, "will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well," in brackets, "but ignore my instruction," end of brackets, "sin crouches at your door. Its desire is for you," in brackets again, to overpower you. End of brackets. You must master it. Hopefully that explains what God is saying a little bit better there. Okay. God's response to Cain's anger is both a rebuke and a warning. If you do well, will you not be accepted? Implies that Cain knows what is the right thing, but chooses not to do it. God's warning that sin is crouching at the door personifies sin as a predator waiting to pounce you. Like a tiger outside the door waiting for you to step outside to just tackle and eat you up. It highlights how pervasive and dangerous sin's nature can be. The phrase, its desire is contrary to you, but you must master it or rule over it, indicates the constant struggle with sin and the need for vigilance and self-control. Example, men or women, usually men, who are addicted to porn. It's a self-control issue. It's a vigilance issue. It's hard, but you have to put yourself in a position not to be tempted to do things. That's what he's talking about. This interaction between God and Cain reveals God's desire for repentance and improvement rather than punishment. Gotta keep going. ESV, verse 8. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and he killed him. End of verse. Side note, if I repeat a verse, sometimes I want to say it correctly. You don't want to add to the word of God. You read what's in the Bible. You don't add to it yourself when quoting. Continuing. So, Cain killed his brother Abel. That's some tragic stuff, isn't it? Cain's jealousy and unchecked anger led to what was the first murder in human history. See what sin does? See what having things pent up inside does? It's never a good thing. That act shows the devastating and harboring effects of sin in our heart. Instead of mastering sin, Cain was allowed it to master him, resulting in the destruction of life. The story serves as a powerful reminder of how destructive sin is, like I said above, and how we have to address it before it gets out of control. How about another example? In school, at least when I was in school, you were always told to worry about the quiet ones a little bit, because they are the ones you don't want to explode. Imagine a bully just keeps harassing and taunting and abusing the quiet one. The quiet one just accepts it, or you think he accepts it. It just builds up and builds up and builds up until he finally explodes. And who knows what happens, but usually it's not a good thing. That's an example of sin. It just compounds. Anger just compounds until explosive situations happen. Let's keep going. Verses 9 and 10. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done?" "The voice of your brother's blood is crying out from the ground." We all know that God knows everything. I said in episode 1, one of my favorite aspects of God is the omnis. In this case, omniscient. God is all-knowing. He knows what's up. God's questions to Cain, where is Abel your brother, of course, is a rhetorical question, serving to confront Cain with his sin. And Cain's response is just disrespectful. Cain's response of, "Am I my brother's keeper?" shows his continued defiance and lack of remorse for what he did. Because even Cain knows that God knows what's up. Totally disrespectful. The phrase, "the voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground," what that does is underscores the seriousness of the crime, and the inherent value of human life. It implies that injustice and murder, those two things are not going to go unnoticed by God. What they do is they demand his attention and justice. God is always going to give justice. Continuing on. Again, we're in Genesis chapter 4. Now we're at a long one of verses 11 to 15. In these verses, God curses Cain. "And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Then the Lord said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest anyone who found him should kill him. And that is how the mark of Cain became a thing. Okay, before we continue on to that, here's a side note, trivia tip. The Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, once barred black men from holding the priesthood and had other restrictions on black members from entering their temples. Did you know that? I bet you're saying to yourself, why? Right? What? Why would they do that? Well, that's because they believed, past tense, they believed that black people were descendants of Cain. And this is something that the church, the LDS, the Mormon Church, believed this all the way until 1978. That's right, 1978. That would be 46 years ago. Right. I bet next you're probably saying like, huh? No way, come on. No. First of all, I'm never going to lie to you on this podcast. I'm never going to tell you something that I knowingly know is incorrect. I'm human. I can make a mistake. But this kid's not a mistake. Feel free to go to Google and find out. But here's something I always heard about. Remember Mitt Romney? He is a former presidential nominee, former senator from Utah. Obama beat him in 2012. Well, in 2007, he did an interview with NBC's Meet the Press. And during that interview, old Mittens recounted how he found out. He was driving home from law school one day, and he heard the news on the radio. And he said he was so moved that he pulled over and cried. He was a member of the church as an adult that thought black people were descendants of Cain. Ain't that something? Well, anyway, the church never stated reasons behind their quote restrictions. It has never been fully explained, really. However, in recent years, church leaders have acknowledged that past justifications for the restrictions were based on cultural and history contexts rather than divine revelation. Because God never said anything like that. I just read it to you. Does anywhere in there say that us black people were descendants of Cain? No, it didn't. Anyway, they disavowed the theories that black people's skin are quote a sign of divine disfavor or curse, or that it reflects unrighteous actions in a premortal life or whatever. As you can tell by my tone, that rubs me the wrong way still. Hey, but at least 46 years ago they figured it out. Anyway, back to the curse, 11 to 15. Curse pronounced on Cain further isolates him from his primary occupation and community. By making the ground unproductive for Cain, God removes the source of his livelihood, reflecting the broader consequences of sin that affect both the sinner and the environment. Cain's fear of retribution indicates his understanding of the gravity of his sin. Yet God's provision of a protective mark shows his continued mercy and justice. Despite Cain's severe punishment, God ensures his life is protected, illustrating God's balance of justice with mercy. I'm going to wrap up now with verse 16. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain's departure from the presence of the Lord to the land of Nod symbolizes the spiritual and physical separation that sin brings. Sin separates us from God. God does not like sin. He hates sin. He doesn't want to be around it. So this is an example of that. The land of Nod, meaning wandering, reflects Cain's restless existence as a consequence of his actions. What I harp about a lot in episode 1. Actions have consequences. Your actions will always have consequences, good or bad. Always. The story highlights the severe impact of sin and the importance of obedience in God's justice intertwined with his mercy. Okay, under 40 minutes this time. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. I hope you learned something. I hope it brought you to a greater understanding of God's love for us, that He still has mercy, even though there are consequences to our actions. Episode 3. Here's a preview. We're going to talk about, well, here's my breakdown points for that. It'll be Genesis chapter 6, talking about the sons of God and the daughters of men, Nephilim, God's decision to limit our lifespan, the wickedness of humanity, God's instruction to Noah. If there's some wiggle room, I really want to try to limit this to be under 30 minutes. We'll go into the great flood, God's judgment and renewal. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen. All the links for everything can be found on thewordwalk.com. I'm on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. I'm on Twitter at @thewordwalk. Again, appreciate you guys. Stay blessed. Thank you.